the threat of Al-Qaeda and Islamic terrorism, and I have a threefold strategy. First of all, to some extent we are doing, and that is those governments like the government of Pakistan who are prepared to fight the Al-Qaeda there, to give them money to help them there, much less is needed, but they're doing the job, and also give them the intelligence they need. Beyond that, airstrikes. We have to be prepared when, to use airstrikes, and we have to be prepared to use subversion on the ground. With the three-pronged policy along those lines, then I think we can make some progress in reducing, and of course doing the right things here, because a lot of the Al-Qaeda threat is a threat from this country and Europe.
A lot of it comes from here, and a lot of it comes from training camps in that region. Now, people have to be honest. If you don't want our troops to be there fighting on the ground, village by village, you have to say that what you would like are, for instance, more air drone attacks, bombing from 40,000 feet. This means, among other things, you will have far, far more civilian deaths, and then we'll be blamed for that as well. I mean, at least take those deaths on your back.
All right, let's hear from some members of the audience. The man here in the third row from the back, that's you, yes.
Taking into the account the relative pittance that our servicemen and women are paid if they are injured in the line of duty, I think that it should and will be viewed as an insult for any penny of funding that goes over there. When our armies are over there fighting, tragically under-equipped, that funding could be better diverted.
OK, thank you. The woman in the second row, yes.
Is this just an act of desperation that shows that the battle for hearts and minds was completely lost?
Is that what you think?
Yeah.
OK. And the man at the very back there on the left, and then I come to the woman over there. Yes.
15 years ago, if we'd have said nobody wanted to talk to Sinn Féin or the Provisional IRA, then Northern Ireland would be in a terrible mess today. I know it could be again, great situation. But it could have been in a terrible mess now. Isn't it worth trying any means possible to get people to stop killing each other?
That's your view. OK, and the woman here on the left, and the man in front of you afterwards, and then we'll move on. Yes.
What's to say that these people who are going to be receiving the money are going to say, thanks very much, rub their hands together and carry on doing what they were doing? What's the promise?
OK, Ben Bradshaw, how's that? How can you guarantee that?
Well, you have to do it in a way that doesn't make that happen. And if you talk to the commanders or listen to the commanders on the ground in Afghanistan, in 2006 the government of Afghanistan only controlled 5 out of 13 districts of Helmand. They now control 10 out of 13 districts. They are making progress. And if you talk to British commanders, in contrast to what the gentleman just said, they want to make this work. They think there is potential to get some of the Taliban away from supporting Al-Qaeda, get them back integrated into Afghan society. It's not about giving them bungs or giving them wads of cash. It's about helping the economic development of the country. And as the other gentleman said, as we know from conflicts all over the world, including in Northern Ireland, the way for a lasting peace that means we can bring our troops home, that they can have peace and security, sometimes means you have to talk to people, you have to involve people.
But talking is one thing, giving over millions that we don't have is quite another. And I think they're just building up a dependency.
To compare Northern Ireland with respect, to compare Northern Ireland with Afghanistan shows no understanding of history whatever.
Okay. The man over there, the last point, and then we'll go on. You, sir, yes, on the gangway.
I think it is... we are at a point where decisions have got to be made. Afghanistan belongs to the Afghans, and it has to be left to them. What needs to be done right now is that there has got to be a point where whatever help is needed for them to be able to come together as Afghans and agree to take over their country. That is what needs to be done. Right now, we might be talking about the cost. The cost of being there every day is escalating, it's getting worse, and lives are dying, and we will be in Afghanistan for the next, I don't know how many years. There has to be a point where there's a cutoff where we say, look, whatever is necessary to make these guys come to an agreement, because it's their country. They can't continue to want us to continue to be involved. They have to come to an agreement.
Thank you. Well, we'll go on. We've had a quarter of an hour on that. We better move on faster. We won't get through too much tonight. Neil Wright has a question.
Are immediate public spending cuts the best way to ensure the UK does not fall back into a recession?
Well, we've had this 0.1% growth in the last, apparently in the last quarter. Should there now be immediate spending cuts? Nigel Lawson, you were Chancellor of the Exchequer for, what, 6 years? What do you think?
Right, I think it is urgent that we do attack this huge and unprecedented deficit in the public finances that we have. It is a real present danger. The economy is still in a very precarious state. The financial markets are very, very concerned. How are we going to tackle this? If the financial markets lose confidence, then the cost of financing the deficit is going to go up. Interest rates are going to have to go up in order to sell the government debt in order to finance it, and the problem will be very much worse than it is today.
So you mean now? I mean in the next budget?
Well, as soon as the next budget, I don't think it will, but the next budget will be a Labour budget and they won't have the guts to do it. But I think that if the Conservatives get in at the next election on May the 6th, which looks likely, it's not certain, but it looks likely, then I hope
May the 6th or the Conservatives?
May the 6th is... no, it looks likely that the Conservatives will get in. It's certain that it'll be May the 6th. Then there will be a budget, I hope, in very short order, as we did when we came in 1979, and then there will be a real attack on the deficit then. It's essential that we do this. Otherwise, the burden is going to be huge. People say, oh, well, there will be a problem then. I was involved. You can get the public finances right. During my time as Chancellor, we moved from a substantial deficit to a surplus. You can do it.
But you lived through boom years. You didn't have a recession. You didn't have a recession, did you?
In 1981,
where was your recession?
In 1981, at the depth of the recession, in 1981, at the depth of the recession, we cut the deficit. I remember very vividly, 364 economists said, you have committed the country to a self-perpetuating downward spiral. Those were their very words. And what happened? In fact, the economy recovered from that point. So that is the way to go ahead, and it's essential that we do it.
Okay. Ben Bradshaw.
No, I think, in answer to the question, it'd be the very worst thing to do now. And from George Soros through the International Monetary Fund, everybody is saying, and every government is currently saying, that this is not the time to have savage cuts in government support because the recovery is fragile. By doing that, you risk choking off the recovery. You risk having exactly what the gentleman said he was worried about, which is a double-dip recession. The only people in the world who seem to be advocating savage cuts now are the Conservatives. Of course, there will need to be cuts later on, but it's all about the timing. And
why do you take comfort from everybody else doing the same thing?
Well, you know, when you have the International Monetary Fund, every economist that Nigel may say... Vince Cable, the Liberal Democrats, great man. Every other country, including Germany, Barack Obama, everyone is saying that to withdraw the fiscal stimulus, the support that governments are putting into the economy, which incidentally have made this recession far less serious in terms of job losses, business failures and home repossessions than the recessions that Nigel Lawson was responsible for in the 1980s and then the Tories later in the 1990s. The very worst thing to do was would be to take that life support system away from the economy now.
Douglas Murray.
No, I can't agree at all. I think we don't just need tinkering with public spending cuts. We need really quite savage cuts to public spending for there to be any seriousness of this or any future government. The amount of waste that this government already does, it spends millions of pounds, apart from anything else, advertising to us about what we should do. Straight away a cut. It spends £90 million on the so-called Equalities Commission, £90 million cut straight there. This goes on and on. What is happening at the moment is that the politicians are simply not being honest with us. We cannot keep on spending at these levels. It's no good for David Cameron to say he'll compete with Labour on NHS spending and so on. They have to be honest at some point. As it is, what is happening is that this nation is like a drunk man who, instead of recognising at some point he's going to have to get a hangover, has just had the hair of the dog. At some point, we are going to have to go through this hangover, and spending cuts like this really are no way to... spending cuts, just ignoring them as they're doing, and to have this same competition on the centre ground for all the political parties that are saying effectively the same thing. They pretend, Labour and the Conservatives pretend that there are significant differences between them, and there really are.
But Ben Bradshaw says every country in the world and the UN, goodness knows, anyone you care to name, recommends this. That everybody's right.
Well, I don't care.
The same thing.
I mean, I don't...
You don't care? Okay, I'll come back to you. Jenny Tonge. Jenny Tonge.
Well,
two things. First of all, the first